Thanks again for joining us at the Competitive Advantage Talks presented by Kager, also known as Craft Analytics Group. My name is Ophir. I am a second-year MBA student at MIT Sloan. It is my pleasure to introduce the presentation, Unlocking Premium Value Through Understanding Your Fans with Tepper Sports and Entertainment. Please join me in welcoming our speaker, Brian Legidiani, Vice President of Business Strategy and Analytics at Tepper Sports and Entertainment, to the stage. Enjoy.
All right. So if you work at a sports team, you know that premium seat holders are an extremely valuable part of the business. The challenge that a lot of these sports teams run into, though, is they're the hardest fans to find. So what if there was a way to find people or identify people that could be premium seat holders before they even knew it themselves? If you think about that for a second, be less cold calls, less time wasted on pitches to businesses that have zero interest in corporate hospitality, just better targeting, better conversion rate, better sales process. Well, that's what we're working on at Tepper Sports and Entertainment, is a strategy to unlock premium value through understanding our fans. So before we get started, a little bit about my journey to Tepper Sports and Entertainment. My career has always been at this intersection of strategy, data, and revenue, but I actually started pretty far away from sports. I started, if you can believe it, as a healthcare investment banker. And then after business school, did some strategy consulting here in Boston. Then I got the itch to get into sports. I wanted to combine my interest in strategy and data and revenue with the sports world. And luckily at the time, a lot of sports organizations were starting to think differently about their business. So I went to Under Armour for 6 years and then joined Tepper Sports in 2020. So I don't know how many aspiring people that are investment healthcare bankers in the audience here, but if you're looking for a path to sports, here's one of them. A little bit about Tepper Sports and Entertainment. We're the parent company of the Carolina Panthers, Charlotte FC, and Bank of America Stadium. So our team started in 2020, and when we started, we had a lot to accomplish. It was standing up executive reporting, building out our Panthers ticketing analytics business. We just announced a soccer team, so we had to start a whole new arm on the Charlotte FC analytics business, which Harrison Regan, who's here today, helped do. We wanted to get really good at partnership analytics, be smart there, so we hired Parker Andrews to do that. And after we did that, we took a step back and we assessed on where we could have an impact. And when we looked at where we were impacting the ticketing business, it was very non-premium focused. It was a lot of general admission season ticket pricing and service and lead generation. And we wanted to try and see if we could help our premium business. That's where we wanted to dig in a little bit more. Now, a second on premium selling versus non-premium selling. Premium selling is a completely different ballgame. It's a higher barrier to entry. It's a longer sales cycle. It's a different value proposition. It's typically a more skilled seller. And the last one on the page here, it's traditionally very relationship focused. And this is where teams like ours have struggled a little bit working with premium teams. But we wanted to change that. We wanted to try and bring more data to the process of the premium selling process. And typically when a team like ours starts this and helps a premium team, they start out just looking in their area. They look around their stadium, pick a radius, and say, how many companies are around our stadium? There's tons of sources where you can look at this information, and that's exactly what we did. This is what we found initially. There's 18 Fortune 1000 companies based in the Charlotte region. There's 1,400 private companies with significant revenue. But knowing these companies exist isn't enough. It's not like we can walk into the Bank of America headquarters with a jersey and just say, hey, you guys like football, right? We've got to pinpoint the people at these companies that have the interest, the influence, and the budget to invest in premium sports experiences. So there's this story that goes around the halls of Bank of America Stadium about this fan years ago who used to come to Panthers games. Nobody knew who he was. In our system, his email address ended in gmail.com. He was in a nice area of the stadium, an area we call the suite clubs. It wasn't overly extravagant. Then one day, somebody on our premium team just stumbled upon the fact that he's the CEO of one of the largest companies in Charlotte. So we started talking to him, and the next year, he upgraded into an executive level suite. Then the following year, when we opened up our gallery suites in 2020, it's our most premium suite experience. It's field level end zone suites. He moved his company there. And then in 2022, when we opened up our soccer team, his company became one of the largest sponsors of Charlotte FC. And we always asked ourselves, how many more people are there like this in our building? And so we wanted to try and answer that. We did that really in 3 steps here. The first step here, definitely not the most glamorous, but the most critical process, is building a foundational understanding of your fans. Now, anybody who's ever done this before knows this is the most unrecognized part of the process. When you start an effort like this, you literally have data everywhere in the building. Ticketing is in one quarter of the building. Digital information is another. Vendor information is all over the place. This is where the partnership with Kager really came in. They helped us aggregate and integrate all of this information into a data warehouse. And this data warehouse is really the engine of everything that we do. Not just efforts like this, but also everything we do from an analytics and reporting perspective. But getting that information in one place is really just the start. Even when you get it there, it's still such a mess. You could have somebody in your system with 3 accounts, one under their work email, one under their personal email, one under an email address they open up in college and they still use for spam. Some call it a golden record, others call it a customer 360, others call it a unified view of the customer. Whatever you call it, going through the process of merging similar records together and taking the time to do that is extremely important. We worked with Kager to find some rules based on contact information to pull similar records together, and the results were incredible. We saw a 50% reduction in fan records when merged into a distinct fan. So think about that. 1 out of every 2 fans in our system before was a duplicate. It's not just about tidying up our spreadsheets. It's about putting outreach that's out there to fans that are relevant and make sense to them. So we built this foundational understanding of our fans, but we wanted to do more. We wanted to learn more about them, especially professionally. And luckily at the time, right when we were going through our journey with Kager, the NFL was taking on this one-to-one fan engagement program, doing something similar at the league level, trying to understand fans better. So it was great timing, and it let us partner with the NFL data and analytics team. Now you think about the information that teams have by themselves, right? It's all local. It's local ticket sales, local digital engagement, local merch and F&B. But we thought if we could tap into what the NFL was providing, not only providing new fans, but also new information to our existing fans, that would be a game changer for us. And so we did that. And this is the level of information, in addition to what we had locally, that we were able to get through the NFL one-to-one engagement program. So some examples on the page here, engagement metrics. We're able to see who's playing Madden, fantasy, who's subscribing to different NFL subscriptions, transaction level information. If somebody bought a Bryce Young jersey on NFLshop.com before, we had no visibility into that, but now we did. Sentiment information, how people feeling when they come to games or participating in certain NFL programs. And the last one on the page here, right at the bottom, is business-to-business data. So some information that we got through this NFL feed was some professional information on our fans. Not just where they're working, but their positions at the company, their seniority level, their education skills. And we're able to do that, so going back to that step 1, that distinct golden record, we're able to tie in company information to our fan profile. So that fan who's sitting in section 203, yeah, he's a season ticket holder, but he's also the CRO of a major company in Charlotte that spends millions of dollars on client entertainment. It let us shift our pitch from, hey, do you want to buy a suite, to, hey, we notice you attend some games and your business has a strong focus on client hospitality. Let's figure out a premium experience that makes sense for you and your business. Totally changing the sales process. So we've done all this work, right? We've built this internal understanding of our fans. We've used outside resources like the NFL to learn about them more, especially professionally. Now we got to activate on it. And how do you do that? Where do you begin to prioritize your fans? We all know that all fans aren't equal. Some are going to come once and disappear, while others are going to become lifelong customers. It's our job as a team to figure out which is which. And the way we did this is we worked with Kager to build a customer lifetime value model. This is where that step 1 and 2 becomes so valuable because you have this understanding of your fan to build this model. And basically, it's a predictive model that takes into account engagement metrics, ticketing information, demographics, and essentially provides a value of what that fan is worth over the next several years, goes into your system automatically, that's visible to your sales team. We like to call this tool internally almost like a Swiss Army knife because we use it for a lot of new sales efforts like this one, but even on the service side. You think about a season ticket holder who starts engaging with us less, starts attending less games, that score is automatically updated in our system, sent to a service rep where they can proactively outreach to that fan, hopefully remedy the situation, versus waiting until the end of the season to figure out there's an issue, and it's maybe too late and that fan doesn't renew. So you take that customer lifetime value information, you marry it with all of that professional data that you have on your fans. And this is an example of a dashboard that our team has put together to create a level of transparency on who are the best prospects to go after. It's available to our team as well as the sales team. And it includes things like company name, the title and job function of the fan, the lifetime spend of the fan. So this provides a level of transparency that was never out there before in terms of who are legitimate premium prospects. But even when you have that list, you got to activate on it. And this is where our team is really excited about where we're going with this. Historically, what's happened is there's been such a heavy focus on the top 20%, the ones that score the highest on that prioritized list. And it makes sense, right? Those are the people that are most engaged, have the highest scores, highest likelihood to convert. But there's also this middle 60% that's out there that has a lot of potential. The issue is that sales teams are only so big, and they can only do so much outreach. And historically, what we've done is, maybe we'll send them an email or two and hopefully get some level of engagement. But remember we said before, premium sales are different. Longer sales cycle, different conversations, more relationship-based. So this rarely works. So what we've started to do in the last year with this middle 60% is start to deploy some artificial intelligence tools. You can't have a speech at Sloan Analytics in 2025 without mentioning artificial intelligence, right? And think of it as like a virtual sales agent that lets you create multiple touch points for fans. And this is basically what this lets us do is lets our sales reps still focus on that top 20%, but engage with that middle 60% once they're qualified a little bit more. And so it's a much more efficient process without ignoring any opportunity. So is this working? When we take on an effort like this internally, we focus on business outcomes. Like even in the last 15 minutes, right? We talked a lot of technical speak around CRMs and golden records and artificial intelligence and predictive models. And to be honest with you, when we start to talk to executives about that, their eyes glaze over sometimes. Well, probably more than sometimes on this. The key to getting this an effort like this off the ground is focus on business outcomes and keep it simple. And this is what we do. We monitor how many new leads are we generating, what's the conversion rate of those leads, and what's the incremental premium value that this is driving towards us. Initially, some incredible success that we're seeing. What we're hearing from our sales reps, or they're walking into these conversations with prospects, knowing just not who they are professionally, but who they are as fans. And that obviously helps with the conversion rate. So what have we really learned through this effort? Like what can this group here take away in terms of the key takeaways of the effort? Number one is the golden record is critical. It sounds so basic and so simple, but it's that step one we talked about. So many teams speed through this process or skip over it entirely. Don't do it. Like get this step right. It's the foundation of everything that you do, whether it's this or more advanced applications using data. You should be doing this at the fan level as well as the company level as well. Second is breaking down silos. This one surprised us a little bit. What we have internally is essentially 3 sales teams. We have our ticketing team, our premium team, and our partnership team. And they operate pretty independently. So they have their own leads, their own process. An effort like this really forces new ways of working. So when that general admission season ticket holder is a premium prospect, well, who makes that call? How is the handoff done? What's the process? Like, we've never had to worry about that. And an effort like this forces us to think differently and define those new ways of working across teams, which has been pretty healthy. Third is strong CRM governance. It's the old garbage in, garbage out principle of CRM. This is a new effort. We need to know what's working in market. We can't know that unless these conversations are recorded into CRM. We want to learn and iterate on this. We just said that this is a new process, and we've really worked with our sales team and emphasized the importance of this because we want to lean into the things that are working well and back off of the things that aren't. And we don't have that visibility if they're not providing that color into CRM. Artificial intelligence and automation. Think about that middle tier, right? That middle tier of fans. There's so many applications that have come up in the market recently. They're very practical. They're not that expensive. They can have a huge impact on your business and help scale that outreach and get you a lot more impact. And then lastly, personalization. Look, we began this effort because we wanted to do more for our premium team than just hand over a company list. We thought we could change the game in terms of how our premium team operates by giving them a level of information on prospects, not just who they are as professionals, but also who they are as fans. And the beauty of this is as we continue to build our understanding of our fans, working with Kager and the NFL, this process is going to continue to get more and more effective as we go on. So that's a little of our playbook on how we're impacting premium value. Thanks for your time, and I think we have time for a few questions as well.
Yeah.
Thanks for the presentation. I know this is very much focused on premiums, but you also touched upon some season ticket members of your team. I'm curious if you are also using CLV for detecting single game buyers. Are you using it in any marketing efforts?
Absolutely. I think that gets back to the point of how we use it is the Swiss Army knife point, right? So we use it in an effort like this, but from a lead generation perspective, we have a lot of new fans, especially on the Charlotte FC side, coming into our building. Even Charlotte itself, it's a new market, a lot of people moving down there that we may not know a lot about. So absolutely, more of like, think about that customer ladder. How do you get somebody from a single game buyer to a season ticket holder? That's part of the process for sure.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Seeing more ownership groups having control over multiple teams like you guys do, how are you seeing creating sort of the golden record with multiple data points from teams, especially when they're in the same region?
Yeah, I think it just gets back to the importance of that step, and the point around these multi-property organizations and the venues that the development around it. Like, that's the process to tie everything together. So I think it's just getting smarter and just some consistency in how you're identifying those fans. So there's that a common identifier across properties or across real estate development. But yes, that's the as these sports properties expand and think through new ways to engage with fans. Like, we've talked a lot about that. How do we grow that golden record process?
Hi, for that 60% segment,
Yeah.
what are, if you want to share, some of the AI tools or pseudo sales rep tools you're using for that?
There's such an evolution of this over the last couple of years. Some may use, and it depends on, AI is such a broad term, right, in terms of what that really means. Some are basic journey tools, just setting up journeys, communication journeys with fans that are a little light on the AI level. We've started to work with a company called Wolf Cycle, and basically the way that works is you can set up, they don't create the content, but the AI application of it is reading the sentiment of the message. And so if you were to engage you and say, were you interested in season tickets, and you say no, the next message isn't great. I'll put you in touch with a sales rep that's smart enough to know that. And I think like as we evolve, like can we get to a place where there is that content generation in some of the emails? That's what we're saying in terms of like where we're trying to go with that middle 60%. It's just going to get even better.
Hey, Tyler Dillard with Windfall Data. We've seen a lot of success working with our partner teams, marrying in and enriching not only that B2B data, but also like household net worth and financial capacity. So how do you think about with positioning your premium products, like marrying financial capacity with that B2B element?
That's a key input. When we talk about demographics of the fan, that was part of that step one. So having that sort of foundational understanding of the affluency of different fan bases, it's critical. A lot of this, though, part of it could be one thing we're finding is some of the early results is when you talk to these people, some of it's a company play and sort of like, hey, I want to move my company, kind of like that example that we gave. Others are just like, look, I just want to have an experience for myself personally, right? And it's information like that can identify some of those, latter groups.
Hi. Would you be able to talk a little bit more about your process to get down to the golden record and really how long that took your team and what kind of tools you were using?
Yeah, I think that's where I think some teams get a little impatient with it because you get an executive team when you have a relationship right away and it's like, hey, let's start activating on this. And it's a fine line between moving fast and moving in the right way. So it takes a little bit of time, but I think you have to set expectations with leadership that, that's again, literally the foundation of what you're building. And basically it's a lot of, you work with a company like Kager, they come in with certain rules on like, here's how we're thinking about marrying up the golden record. And it's, do we match on email? Do we match on first name, last name? You kind of go through that process. But then also, if you're working with a team like the NFL, they're going through the same thing, and how are they doing that? So it's a lot of like, as you bring in more data sources, just making sure there's that commonality between how you do it and just those rules and make sure there's clarity. It's actually something we're working on right now because the NFL is just going through this.
More questions?
Thank you so much for the presentation. And then our team, LA Kings, is going through the similar processes, and we believe we have a great golden record as well. And then that was very challenging. However, what would be another challenge that throughout this processes you were facing after getting the golden records?
I think it was kind of getting to that second point around the process of doing something like this, because it's, I don't know what it's like at your organization. It's felt very siloed in terms of how teams operated. And this required a lot of our ticketing team working with our premium team. And it sounds pretty basic, but some of the hurdles that we ran into initially is, that person who's head of ticketing, they're almost giving up a sale in a way when that person upgrades to a premium product. And so there was a little bit of hesitation there. So I guess the point is like having that overall perspective at the company of like net, this is a good move for us as a company, even though one group might be getting hurt than another. And that requires a lot of process change. That's the biggest thing.
Last question.
Thank you. Hey, Brian. I can wrap my head around the math and the tech. Can you talk a little bit more about that process that you use to break down the silos between premium, non-premium partnerships so that the customer could get in the right lane?
I think what helps a little bit is the storytelling. So that example that I gave of, kind of like bringing it down to, real world example of this person that literally was in a part of our building. He was helped us from a business perspective, but then became one of our biggest supporters from a sponsorship lens. That really helps, and it kind of frames teams of like, this is the kind of the end in mind when we have there. And then I think it's more of just the top-down support is helpful when you do that and say, and define the process, right? It was surprising that, we didn't operate that way before, but I think like having that top-down support and then just working through it with the teams. I'll be honest with you, it was a little bit bumpy initially, but then eventually as you start to see some wins, and we've started to see those, it starts to build momentum.
Thanks.
All right, thank you guys.